Now, this time last year, I sat roughly in this spot and thought, this time next year, I'm going to be in Glastonbury. Yeah, that worked out well, didn't it? And this time last week, I thought, actually, I'm going to be at Twickenham for the Premiership final with Exeter in it. Now, part of that came true, part of that hasn't, because I'm not going to be. I'll be watching it on television. Disappointment. And what we do with it, I suppose, is part of what we're looking at tonight. How we respond when things don't necessarily go the way we want them to go, and how maybe we get angry or I'll get cross. Now, let's think about Glastonbury briefly to start with, because let's start on a positive note. This time of the year, every year, well, apart from 1 in 7, a load of people get together and listen to some bands. Now, some screen shots rolling through should hopefully be in the church tent with people like Adrian, helping people, giving out water and stuff. There's a clip you can go and find about Michael Eavis talking about his faith and the God that he worships. It was great just being there watching bands, but not this year. Something different instead. And then I should be watching some rugby. I will be watching rugby, but not quite in the same way, because you're not there. How do you respond when things don't quite go as you want them to, don't go quite right? Now, when you're watching this, we'll know the result of the match. We can watch Glastonbury over the weekend, well, previous versions, and we'll be looking forward to England hopefully beating Germany. Any Scots here, I'm sorry. Anyway, I thought as a way of then starting this process, we might listen to a song that kind of reminds me of festivals and kind of reminds me of what I should be doing. It's a song basically called God's Not Finished With Me Yet. It's by a band called Rend Collective, and it reminds me of festivals, it reminds me of good times, and it reminds me of what I can possibly do.
Create in me a clean heart. Create in me a work of art. Create in me a miracle. Something real and something beautiful. Create in me a clean heart. Create in me
was Rend Collective. That was a song that in many ways reminds you of all those festivals I'm not going to at the moment. But the reason I've picked that, partly to link to the previous stuff we were talking about, but also because of an article that he wrote in a magazine called Christianity, in which he talks about how to avoid being punched in the face. Now, the legendary boxer Mike Tyson described the state of our online communications pretty succinctly. He said, social media made you all way too comfortable with disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face for it. I think the word is keyboard warriors. I've joined a few Facebook pages recently, and to be honest, yeah, a lot of people say a lot of things they wouldn't say to someone's face, don't they? Anyway, he wrote this article because he got involved with an online discussion on Facebook one Saturday night, and it all got a bit out of hand. And he kind of tried to learn some lessons from it. And what he said was 3 things. Firstly, don't try to win arguments. Try to resolve situations. At least show some kindness. And people can be quite over-positional when they're in a conflict, and they defend their position at all costs. And actually, we can become quite stressed through that. And secondly, humanise before you criticise. Think of the person on the other end. Often we can send off these things to anonymous corporations and go, I think this is terrible and disgusting. But actually you're talking to a person. And sometimes you are just talking to a person. But it's so difficult when you're not having that eye contact, not being close to them, and you're saying things, and you can be quite positional. So always he says, think about the person at the other end. And then also he thinks about, well, you linked it back to a passage from John chapter 13, verse 35. They will know us by our love, not our perfection. We ain't perfect. We ain't never going to be perfect. 'Twas only one person perfect. He walked into the gym the day after this debate, and someone said, oh, I saw you have that debate on Saturday night, and he cringed inside. What's coming? And he said, wasn't it good the way you sorted that out? Because actually he did sort it out, and they met physically, they were able to, and had a conversation, and they're reconciled. We might pick up that theme a bit later. Anyway, love doesn't require us to agree on everything, but it does demand that we disagree well. And probably that's particularly important if we're discussing it with Mike Tyson or Tyson Fury or maybe even Anthony Joshua. Who here can remember the last time you got mad about something? Don't all shout at once. Did your reaction cause you to do something you'd be proud of? Oops. Or were you able to channel it into something positive? Now, anger is an emotion that we all feel from time to time, and sometimes towards each other. We can feel especially annoyed about things because we're passionate about a cause. For example, if you witness or a victim of injustice, it can make us feel very angry and passionate about people's rights. And being on the receiving end of someone else's unjustified rage can also fill us with indignation. That wasn't me. Now, the Bible warns us of the dangers of anger, and that's why some Christians would argue that it's emotion we should avoid. But with all emotional responses, it can be an uncontrollable reaction that particularly triggers. Maybe Germany scoring a goal. Just saying. Anyway, we can feel guilty about being infuriated by events or interactions, but this isn't always necessary. Some Christians use the example of Jesus' outburst in the temple as evidence that it's perfectly acceptable for Christians to express their emotion and their anger. But this story is not the complete reflection of Jesus' character. It's a striking story because it was so rare that he got angry. He normally expressed love, forgiveness, reconciliation. We come back to that word. We also need to take into account what Jesus was furious about, and whether the things that we become furious about align with the reasons behind Jesus' anger. Even if they don't. This isn't to say that we are forbidden from being angry. Not that I'm saying this, it's just thoughts. It's not always a sinful emotion. Paul writes, in your anger, do not sin. He didn't say anger was sin. But don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. Now, that's a good bit of guidance which I've tried to follow and sometimes fail on. Outrage is not forbidden, but advised on how we should manage it. We shouldn't let it become an excuse for sinful behaviour, and we should work to settle the issue with the person at the other end so the feelings don't become and remain enraged. We come across more stuff in the Bible that talks about dealing with emotions in James chapter 1 verse 19, and it says everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak and slow to become angry. That isn't always me either. Again, this strong feeling of annoyance isn't completely prohibited, but it's highlighted that it shouldn't be our immediate response, and we should avoid getting angry habitually. I don't think I'm enjoying these talkings. I'm not sure it's really, not sure. When we anger easily, the risk that our actions will be negatively defined by this response is higher. Although our anger can form a part of initial drive to effect positive change, sustained anger, being constantly angry, can lead us to act in contradiction of our principles and our beliefs. It just becomes the anger, and that subsumes it. It isn't the thing that started it, it's the anger and the emotion that takes it over. Now, I'd say it's fine for Christians, for people, to become angry in some cases, and others completely necessary. But in any case, we should work to ensure that anger is not our first reaction to every injustice or instance, but when it is, we should make a conscious effort to channel our anger into something constructive, as opposed to letting it fester and lead us to do things that are in contradiction to our faith. Behind me is a visual clue, because what people can often do is find it very easy. If I came out this morning and it was gone, it's very easy if people take offence. The one thing people can take is offence. And with, as we said before, keyboard warriors, when you're not really talking to somebody, I have no idea if I'm really talking to somebody now. It's very easy to give offence. I might have given offence today. If I have, I apologise, and I expect the comments to come through on the Twitter sphere. But thank you. Our prayer is actually going to be a song by a chap called Andy Flanagan, and it's a song about reconciliation. And I picked it because I think it kind of ties together some of the things we've been thinking about, well, I've been talking about over the last few minutes. It's about people being reconciled, people who are angry or maybe cross with themselves, actually coming together and being reconciled to each other. His view is, and I tend to agree, it's become quite a fractured and broken society over the last few years, probably the last 5 years. And though there was all that buzz when we first went into lockdown of people caring and looking out for each other, it all starts to feel a bit broken again if we're not careful. So here's a song. It's our prayer. It's about reconciliation.
Your sacrifice, it makes the space for all to find home. You dealt with all the walls of hate that separate us. We confess our ignorance, our idols, and our pride. We confess our laziness and sticking to our side. Lord, to you, to our neighbors, to creation, may we be reconciled. To you, we make confession, seek your blessing, may we be reconciled. The cost of straddling race to love our neighbor. You spoke the truth, yet modeled grace, devoid of favor. We confess our lack of love in arms not open wide. We confess the prejudice and lies for which you died. Lord, to you, to our neighbors, to creation, may we be reconciled. To you we make confession, seek your blessing, may we be reconciled. Loosen our grip, O Lord, on tribal flags and cords, that we might cling to you. We acknowledge each other as sister and brother. We acknowledge each other as sister and brother. Lord, to you, to our neighbors, and to creation, may we be reconciled. To you we make confession, seek your blessing, may we be reconciled. To you, to our neighbors, and to creation, may we be reconciled. From you seek salvation for our nation, may we be reconciled.
Thank you, Andy Flanagan. Now, we're going to close tonight's service with something we did a year ago, that we recorded a year ago. It wasn't done for Glastonbury, it was first done in that service that we had that Sunday. And it's the St. James's Blessing. Now, it was a song recorded by people like Tim Hughes that went across the country, went viral across the country, and we did our own version of it. It was a song sung and played by the members of St. James's out across the community which we inhabit. And there was a line in it which says, "May his favour be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children." And I suppose as I finish tonight, I'm going to tie all this up with a bit of what you might call an advert. My day job is working for an organisation called Somerset Works. And what we do is we work with young people between the ages of 15 and 18 who are, I think, for want of a better word, either falling out of education or need some support. Some people are doing great, but they need some advice and some guidance and something to do. And we're running a project over this summer, funded by, amongst other people, the readers of the Sunday Times, to actually engage young people who've had what we'd call a difficult year or two. We've all had troublesome times, but actually someone coming out of year 11, that's O-level year to people of my age, it's been quite disruptive. So we're running a whole series of projects over the summer. Now I'm going to put an advert up here now. Actually, you might know somebody. You might know someone in year 11 or 12 or 13, I mean, I can be flexible on the ages, who actually would like to do something over the summer, have some activities, and help them get ready for the autumn and for college and what comes next. Now, I know this isn't a church thing, but it's a thing that a church member is doing or part of or engaged with. So if you do know somebody who is leaving school this year, has left school this year because everyone's already out, have a click on a link, see if there's something they want to do, or just send them through to myself. There's an email and there's a link on it, and we can help and be around and do some activities. Now that's just a plug for something that sounds rather secular, I suppose, but what it is, if this is what I'm doing, this is what this church person from this church is doing, what they do on a Monday. And we used to do that when we met together, didn't we? We used to say and go, what's someone doing on Monday? Well, that's what I'm doing on Monday. And if you know someone who'd like to do it with me, send them some details. Now, we're going to close by singing together the St. James's blessing. May his favour be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. Good night, and God blessing.
Make his face shine upon you and gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you
and give you peace.
Amen. Amen. The Lord bless you and keep you.
Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you.
The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Amen. Amen. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations,